since the turn of the century. Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We get ready for the first Sprint Cup Series practice from this historic venue, the Pagoda. There in the background, the 88 car. One of the biggest stories, not only of last week, but definitely this week. The driver behind the wheel of that car is not Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Earnhardt Jr. actually tweeted earlier today, great news. Anything positive coming from Dale Earnhardt Jr. right now is wonderful. Today is the first day in many that I sensed improvement. So great positive tweet coming out of Dale Earnhardt Jr. and I'm sure that the guy who's behind the wheel of that 88 is happy for that as well, because that is Jeff Gordon. Alongside Jeff Burton, Steve Lachard, I'm Rick Allen. Now, we see Jeff Gordon subbing, and by the way, Jeff Gordon has won here 5 times, but we see Jeff Gordon subbing for Dale Earnhardt Jr. But Jeff Gordon has been retired for quite a few months now. How difficult is it for him to come and get into a car, especially at this place?
Well, it's not easy. And this racetrack, I think, is one of the harder racetracks, although you love the history and the heritage of this racetrack. And I think Jeff Gordon, from this area, spent a lot of time in this area. It means even more to him. But this is a difficult transition. When you're out of the car, you retired for a reason. You know what I mean? So now you've got to make sure that you're mentally involved, that you're ready to go. But he's done that. Everything that I've heard him say and read that he said, he's worked hard in the last several days, been in the Chevrolet simulator. He's looked at track data from his teammates. He has put a lot of effort into being the Jeff Gordon that we know he is, the race car driver he is. But once he gets in that race car, and goes down that back straightaway for the first time, I think that's when it all clicks in. Because now it's not, hey, are we going to do this?
Right.
You're doing it. Right. You're doing it. And and now you're racing the clock. And so now he knows what his objective is. And I think being in that race car, it'll immediately click for him.
Well, it is a very difficult racetrack, as Jeff mentioned, but it's a difficult racetrack for the entire field. So I actually think that's an advantage for Jeff Gordon. You look at his success here with 5 wins, and I've been fortunate enough to come here multiple times with Jeff Gordon as my driver, driving the cars that I set up. We've been lucky enough to get some top 5s, but the feedback he's given me over the years, he talks about this track very unique, talks about how different all 4 corners are, and I think that gives Jeff an advantage. This isn't a place that the competitors raced in the spring. No one else has been back to Indy since Jeff was here last year, so while Jeff hasn't been in this rules package, no one has been in this rules package at this racetrack, and I think that it may be a check in the pro corner, or the pro side of the pros and cons for Jeff Gordon this weekend.
Before Jeff Gordon strapped into the car, our own Mike Massaro was down there to chat with him.
As I had the opportunity to speak with Jeff Gordon this morning for a good 10-15 minutes to kind of get an idea where his head was, talked about many different things, one of which was it was ready physically to get back in the race car. Remember, he hasn't been in a car since Homestead, November of last year. He said, well, he's not the typical type of driver to work out a lot to get in condition. He uses the race car to get in shape, so he feels like that might be a little bit of a concern. But his biggest concern is the mental aspect of the game. Because of that, Jeff, you alluded to this, he spent a lot of time in the simulator this week trying to get acclimated to the race car. Kind of joked, too. He said, look, I did pretty well. It's like the first time I haven't wrecked in the simulator. And the one thing he's most concerned about, though, is how that translates to the information he gathered in that simulator is actually the reality on the racetrack.
Yeah, that's difficult for everyone, and I think the older you are, as an older driver, you're accustomed to feeling the car, seeing things, you get in the simulator. I think it takes you a little bit longer to adjust than the younger drivers. They seem to adjust a little bit quicker. But we can see already Jeff Gordon is in the gas, running hard down the front straightaway, and that's what I'm saying. I think now to him, okay, now this is what we're doing. We're not talking about it anymore. Now it's just about making lap time and getting as good as you can, as early as you can. You see he's pushing the car, had to get out of the throttle there to keep him hitting the wall. But that's what you want to see. You want to see him attacking right off the bat, and that's what he's doing.
And this has got to be a little bit of an adrenaline rush, even for a 4-time champion, a 5-time Brickyard 400 winner. This is his office. I'm sure, I know, Jeff, you know, both recently you removed from the seat, me removed from the pit box, how there were those days, those moments where you missed certain parts of it. And I love covering the races. Jeff Gordon covered the races for the first half of the year, but he's got to feel great to be back behind the wheel.
There are certain racetracks, too, that I'm guessing that Jeff would have said, you know what, he announced his retirement over a year ago. When he did retire, he did say, I'm done racing full-time. Well, this is a one-off, potentially a two-off, if he ends up in Pocono next week and Dale Jr. isn't back yet.
Well, he made it clear that he wasn't shutting the door on driving again. And by the way, his first lap was 4th fastest. And, he was ahead of Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Jamie McMurray, Casey Kane, Tony Stewart, so, pretty quickly right back in the swing of things.
You don't forget how to drive a race car, do you, Jeff?
No, I don't think you forget how to drive a race car, but I think the intensity that it takes to drive a race car is what's got to come back. When you've been out of the race car, and he was on vacation in France. All the other competitors, they were fighting for position last week in New Hampshire. So the thing that it takes a while to come back is that killer spirit, that competition, that, if I don't give 100%, somebody else is, and they will wear me out. That is what takes a little while to come back, that fighting intensity. Again, right off the bat, he's 4th fastest, and we've had 23 cars go, so that's pretty impressive.
Well, and faster than cars that were here testing less than 2 weeks ago.
Didn't take long.
A little bit strong in the back, the way it turns. It's got a lot of grip there early. Actually put the track rod down and got a little bit too tight on for 1 and 2, and then to get that back up.
And that's what we saw. We saw him have to get out of the throttle, off of 1. Turn 1 is a low grip corner and compared to turn 3, and in turn 1 you tend to have less grip. You're either looser or you're tighter. He made an adjustment on the track bar and actually got it too tight. But to me, that's what I'm talking about. Now that he's in the race car, the juices are flowing, the competitive juices are flowing, he's off going, he's making adjustments to the car.
Yep.
Like, he wasn't thinking about, what do I do? He just did it. Instinct kicks in.
When he says that and when he gives that feedback back to Greg Ives, how long will it take those two to maybe get on the same page or mesh as far as the communications go?
Well, if they were complete strangers, it might take a while. But you have to remember, Greg Ives was an engineer in the 2448 shop back when Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson shared buildings. So he is not a stranger to Jeff Gordon at all. So I think they're going to adapt pretty well. When we talk about another big story at the racetrack, well, you go from Jeff Gordon back in a race car to Tony Stewart. I'm going to say possibly his final Brickyard 400. I think Jeff Gordon's proved that everything's possible. So, 12th quick on the board, a name that is synonymous with Indiana. Indianapolis Motor Speedway has found success here. Probably a name we would be talking about having an emotional weekend being his final race here, Jeff, but not in the potential win column. I think they've squashed that over the last month. They've proved that this 14 team can win. They won at Sonoma, 2nd place run last weekend at New Hampshire, and I think that's going to make this weekend even more special for Tony Stewart, knowing he has a team and a car that can win.
And Tony's a different driver, a different personality than he was just 6 weeks ago. That win at Sonoma was unbelievable for Tony. He's happy to be here. He talked about it at Sonoma a few days before he won the race. He wasn't having fun.
Right.
He's having fun now. And you can't take a guy like Tony Stewart, as competitive as he is, as much as he has a desire to win, as much success as he's had, and run him in 25th and 30th and expect him to have fun. That's miserable. That's the only way to describe it, is miserable. So now that he's running well and coming to the Brickyard, this is the Brickyard. He appreciates the tradition. He's run the Indy 500 here. He appreciates the tradition here. He'll have a lot of friends, I'm sure, in the turn 2. Sweets cheering him on. This will be an emotional weekend for Tony.
And Jeff, as you talk about him appreciating the tradition that is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and you'll remember this going back to his first few races here, that appreciation for this racetrack created a lot of pressure. He came in here very, very often, very balled up, very tense, until he finally broke through and won his first Brickyard 400 in 2005. Turn the clock ahead to 2016. He's much more laid back right now. A totally different attitude as he comes to the racetrack. To give you a little understanding, I spoke with his crew chief, Mike Bugaravich, this morning. He said Tony took the team out to Sarah Fisher's go-kart track last night. They had a lot of laughs, turned a lot of laps, had a bunch of fun. Tony, though, didn't get into go-kart. Didn't want to take any chances. This race means too much.
It's so emotional, and the reason being, he's from Indiana. This is his home state. He grew up dreaming of racing on this very racetrack. Was able to do it in open wheel. Grandfather drove Mobile One delivery truck in Indiana. There's so many things that are near and dear to Tony's heart about this place, this racetrack.
I still remember when he won the 400, he climbed the fence.
Yeah.
And when I say climbed the fence, he was
climbed it
way up the fence. And, I tell you one thing I find interesting, too, is he's gone out and he's made a long run. Right off the bat, he's on his 6th lap right now. No one else except for Casey Kane. He ran 5. Carl Evans ran 5. Right to start with, he went out. He must have felt pretty good about his car. Went ahead and made a little bit of a long run to try to understand where this car is going to swing. And We haven't seen many people do that, so the fact that he did do that makes me think that he's pretty happy with his race car.
Has the most laps of any, 6 already in this practice session. You flashback, you had mentioned it, winning the 400 and climbing the fence. At the time, he was sponsored by the Home Depot, and I remember a big thing about the Home Depot saying, you know what, Tony, we're going to give you a ladder. We've got ladders, we'll take care of that climbing part. But he did it back-to-back. It was 05, 07. Each win, he climbed the fence and kissed the bricks. The ceremonial kissing of the bricks here at the Brickyard. A racetrack that has been so important in the history of auto racing. Tony Stewart, when he let everyone know that he was retiring, said, I don't want people to do anything special for me. I don't want gifts. I'm just retiring. Let me go off into the sunset. Indianapolis was like, there's no way we can let you just go off into the sunset. They built a dirt track inside of Turn 3. And there's a picture. That was back on the 5th of July. There's a picture of the guys that got out there and ran in the dirt. So that will be Tony Stewart's dirt track. It will be inside this massive facility. And a big honor that Tony Stewart obviously is going to cherish for a long time. Earlier today, they gave him a piece of the fence. It's fitting. Obviously, that's what he climbed when he won both 400s here. And the track gave him that.
You know, what's interesting on that picture, you know, you forget, because he's had such a successful career in stock car racing, sitting on the left front tire of an Indy car.
That's right.
So his racing resume is far from over. He's retiring from stock car racing, but we know he's going to drive something. But it's an impressive resume. It's just very lengthy.
He ran in 5 Indy 500s at this racetrack as well. So it's not just been stock car racing. It's been open wheel. And he has made a career on the dirt as well. Jimmy Johnson is fastest in this first practice.